Hey, what's up guys? This is Nick at BarBend.com. Today, I'm going to be trying out Whey Gold from Ultimate Nutrition. So first I'm going to talk about the brand. I'm going to see how it tastes with some milk and with some water. I'm going to talk about the nutrition, the ingredients, who it might be good for, who it might not be quite so good for, the price, and some other pros and cons. Also, make sure you Google BarBend plus best whey for a list of the absolute best ways on the market for different athletes and different activity levels. So Ultimate Nutrition was founded all the way back in 1979, so it's quite a bit older than most of their competitors, and it was one of the first companies to sell protein powders and amino acid tablets and things like that. The guy who founded it was called Victor Rubino, who was an amateur powerlifter, which might come as a surprise to some folks because the brand is actually really popular in the bodybuilding community now. They're pretty deeply involved with Mr. Olympia in certain respects. They've sponsored winners in the past. Now, Victor Rubino passed away in 2003, but his family still runs the business. And today they've got a ton of different products out there. They've got 4 different weight gainers. As I mentioned, they're pretty popular among bodybuilders. They've also got glucosamine, they've got vitamins. They've also got over a dozen different kinds of protein powder as well, including the first chicken protein powder I've ever seen. You may know them for IsoCool, which I have also reviewed, or ProStar, which I've also reviewed, but I don't have any left to show you because I really like the taste of it. But today we're talking about Whey Gold, which is pretty different, even in comparison to the other protein powders that they offer. So let's see what the chocolate flavor tastes like. It's very creamy. The flavor is actually delicious chocolate, so I wasn't 100% sure if it was going to be a dark or a milky chocolate flavor. And although I have mixed it here with about 8 ounces of 2% milk, nonetheless, I can tell that it is a very sort of creamy flavor. It didn't mix super well. It mixed relatively well, given there's no lecithin in there. There's no soy in this at all. Nonetheless, I did get a couple of little clumps in there. But yeah, the main thing I'm getting from this is a very creamy milk chocolate flavor that's not totally dissimilar from their chocolate creme flavor that they have in some other varieties. Okay, so now let's see if it still tastes creamy with some water. My suspicions have been confirmed. This is a very creamy protein powder. Again, you don't want to go into this suspecting an earthy, dark chocolate sort of flavor. It really is very creamy, very milky, even with water. In fact, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that this is one of the very few protein powders I've tried, and I've tried a lot of them, that taste very good with water. So I'm impressed with this. All right, so let's take a quick look at this nutrition label. So one scoop is 140 calories. In that, you're gonna get 20 grams of protein, 9 grams of carbohydrates with no fiber at all, and 2 grams of sugar, and 2 grams of fat with 1.5 grams of saturated fat. As far as other nutrients go, you've got 17% of your daily cholesterol, 2% of your daily sodium, and 16% of your daily calcium. So there are a few things to point out there. First of all, that is quite a bit higher in calcium than your average protein powder, which is closer to like 10% most of the time. Very low in sodium, relatively high in cholesterol, compared to other protein powders, 17% of your intake. That could be a pro or a con, depending on your goals. And then finally, this is not particularly low in carbohydrates. This has some extra maize added to it, which I'll discuss in the next section. But suffice to say, it's important to note that, 9 grams of carbohydrates to 20 grams of protein, that's probably not going to make very low carb people particularly happy. Now, as far as the ingredients go, the first ingredient is the Gold Protein Blend. So that's whey protein concentrate, hydrolyzed whey, and whey isolate in that order. So whey concentrate is the first ingredient here. Besides that, you're going to get some waxy maize, which is a flavorless starch that comes from corn. Then natural flavors, and then the artificial sweeteners, sucralose and acesulfame potassium. So there are a few things that are really worth noting here. First of all, this does contain artificial sweeteners. Secondly, it doesn't contain artificial flavors, which is an interesting tactic. There are no artificial colors either, so that's pretty interesting. Besides that, there is no soy in this. As I mentioned earlier, no soy lecithin. There are a lot of people on like sort of bodybuilding focused diets and regimens that try to minimize soy in their diet. So they should be pretty happy about that. And there's also no digestive enzymes in here. And it's not uncommon to see enzymes, particularly like lactase, in whey protein powders, just to help like minimize indigestion for certain people who that can help. Doesn't help everyone, but it does help some people. So if you're very sensitive to lactose, this might be a problem for you. All right, so who is this product for? Well, I'll start with saying who it isn't for. As I just mentioned, it's not people who have issues with lactose or people who have issues with dairy in general. Like there are some people who are sensitive to the epitopes in milk, and people like that, they'll often take hydrolyzed whey because that is like very processed. A lot of the bonds between peptides and stuff are broken down, so it can minimize a lot of issues with allergies and things like that. While this does contain hydrolyzed whey, the first ingredient is whey concentrate, which if you do have issues with whey, it's usually mostly with whey concentrate. And as I mentioned, there are no enzymes here either to help minimize indigestion. So if dairy or if other types of whey do give you issues, this might not be for you. If you're avoiding artificial sweetness, this probably isn't for you. If you're on a low carbohydrate diet, this probably isn't really for you either because it's got 9 grams of carbohydrates to 20 grams of protein. So who is it for? Well, not everyone is on a low carbohydrate diet, and especially after exercise, a lot of people try and get a ton of carbohydrates. So the thing with waxy maize here, that is 9 grams of carbohydrates in this. As I mentioned, waxy maize is like a flavorless starch, and people often take it with the intent of spiking their insulin. The research is a little bit shaky on this actually. Like some people say they take waxy maize in order to spike their insulin so they can do a better job of sending nutrients to their muscles. Other people say they take it because it doesn't spike your insulin, and in that regard it can help to like prevent big spikes and help to keep your energy more consistent. Again, the research is a little bit conflicting on that and sort of beyond the scope of this video, but I will say if you're a big fan of waxy maize, whatever side of the debate you fall on, you're going to be happy with this. And that's really sort of the main selling point of this product, besides the fact that it does not contain any artificial flavors, which could be good news for some folks, but again, it does have those artificial sweeteners. Now, as far as the price goes, I should state that it can change at any time for any reason, and I also need to state that this product, maybe more than any other protein powder I've seen, has a really wide variety of prices out there. I've seen this 5-pound tub going for $55 and for $90, which is like way higher. So look, if we just kind of average out the costs I've seen it for, we can say this comes to like a little over $1 per serving, which evens out to about 5.2 cents per gram of protein. So like, look, we'll say it's between 5 and 7 cents per gram of protein on average. That's a very rough estimate. That is relatively expensive. We need to make sure that you remember that this does have 9 grams of carbs and 20 grams of protein per serving, whereas the average protein powder out there, you know, it typically is a bit lower in carbohydrates and has more like 24 to 25 grams of protein per serving. So that explains why on a per gram of protein basis, this is a bit pricier. Like the standard, like the leading brand is about 4 cents per gram of protein. This is a bit over 5. But again, this is, you know, sort of a combination carbohydrate supplement in a sense. So you may find that price worth it. What are the pros of Whey Gold? Why should you get one of these big tubs? Well, it is unusually tasty, like weirdly, surprisingly tasty for a protein powder when it's mixed with water. Like there are very few protein powders that taste good with water, especially the ones that don't have any artificial flavors. I was really surprised with that. No artificial flavors and no artificial colors in this, which you might be happy about. You might also be happy about the fact that this does not contain any soy, which is extremely unusual in protein powders. I'm not saying that soy is good or bad for you, but it is the case that there are plenty of people out there who try to limit soy, especially in the bodybuilding crowd, at which this brand, you know, kind of aims their products. Now, in addition to that, this is pretty high in calcium, you know. There aren't many people who take whey protein powder as a means to get their calcium. It's not really seen as a great source of micronutrients, but it does have like almost double the amount of calcium that I'm used to seeing in protein powder. So again, that's like a nice little bonus. Also pretty low in sodium, which might be good or bad news depending on your own goals, but especially like surrounding maybe a physique or a bodybuilding show, a lot of people try to really control their sodium intake, so that could be a pro. And then finally, it has this waxy maize. Now, the research is a little bit conflicted, and like the crowd of people who do read bodybuilding literature and so on are very conflicted as to the pros and cons of waxy maize. Again, getting into a big discussion of that is a bit outside the script of this video, but if you really like waxy maize, then you'll be happy with this product. Now, there are some potential downsides for this product I do want to mention. It is relatively expensive for a protein powder. Again, you normally look for like 4 cents per gram of protein for the leading brands. This is over 5 cents per gram of protein. It's not really considered by many people as an anytime protein powder either. And by that, I really just mean that it does have a decent amount of carbs in it. You know, like it's not, a lot of people, they'll take their protein powder and they can just add some carbohydrates to it. If they want some of that, they can have something fatty with it if they want that. With this, you are getting a decent serving of carbohydrates in it. So especially if you're someone following a low carb, or especially if you're following a ketogenic diet, you might not think this is like really for you. It does contain artificial sweeteners, sucralose and acesulfame potassium. I'm not saying those are bad for you, but if you try to limit them, you'll be a little bit disappointed with this product. There are also no digestive enzymes either, which, as I mentioned, that can help to minimize digestive discomfort for some people. If you really like that, if that's really important to you, if you have issues with lactose, things like that, might be a bit of a bummer with this. And then finally, this does contain 17% of your daily cholesterol. That's not, I've seen wheys that are higher in cholesterol, and there are a lot of people in the bodybuilding crowd who deliberately try to increase their cholesterol. So you may well find that as a pro, but if you're trying to limit it, something to keep in mind. All right, those are my thoughts on Ultimate Nutrition's Whey Gold. Make absolutely certain that you Google BarBend plus best whey to get the full list of the best whey proteins on the market. Now I'm gonna drink this protein.